you get the recording started, do I need to
Don't worry
go
about
back and
minutes. I've
officially,
got the recording started. It's fine.
do I need to officially go back and restart the meeting?
No, I think you're okay, Sierra.
Okay. So as you've probably seen in Carrie's emails and base camp notifications, the purpose of this meeting is shifting slightly. So we're not going to be following the agenda that went out minute by minute. This is going to be a general update meeting. So Carrie is going to lead most of this conversation for us to hear what's happening at the federal level. So Carrie, take it away.
Sure. Just give me a second to get this going. And just for a point of clarification, we're still a public policy committee meeting. Anybody can attend. We're focusing primarily on the agenda item for the updates. And we didn't get any public comment, but obviously we might, make some decisions around like letting people speak and whatnot if people join. And my apologies, I'm trying to figure out
Thank you all for being here this morning.
sharing this right now. Bear with me. I'm sorry. I've worked all weekend and I'm a little fried. Just looking for my I'll get there. Oh, I'm really appreciating my admin support right now. My apologies. I'm just trying to figure out what I'm supposed to be clicking on.
All right.
Okay, sorry, I found it. Okay, so you're probably at least seeing the slide deck, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Slide titled AmeriCorps Grant Terminations.
Okay, now are you seeing it as like a normal slideshow?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thanks everybody. I'm just gonna give a briefing to get everybody caught up on what's going on. You'll know that I've posted some updates within the Basecamp as well for you. Do you want to just kind of give an overview of the events that have happened so far and take some questions at the end? Please understand that there are certain things that because of the legal review happening that I will not be able to speak to. Please ask your questions, but understand I may not be able to answer them. So just as an overview, basically, as you'll be aware, had unfortunate news to share with everybody that we did receive notice from AmeriCorps that all 2024-25 AmeriCorps grants under OregonServes were terminated. That was announced April 25th on Friday. We received that late afternoon. This immediately impacts all of our AmeriCorps state grantees as well as some current planning grantees. We were going to use some funds that are getting terminated to kind of finish out those contracts. So we'll be looking into how we're going to handle that. This affects every state, Commonwealth, and territory that was receiving AmeriCorps grants. There is a response underway nationally and by state. And there is a legal review and process obviously happening at the national and the state level as well. So this is a little bit of the timeline of events. Friday afternoon, we received notice from a National Association, America's Service Commissions, known as ASK, that they were calling an emergency meeting, that there were rumors of a termination email coming out from DOJ. This was a surprise to see this rumor because inside sources that are pretty reliable with the help, the Education Labor Committee and sources close to DOJ had said that this was not expected. This wasn't part of the plan. So there had been repeated assurances around that. And so this was a big surprise and we're not sure why that sudden shift. Am aware that last week, a few days before this happened on social media, that there had been kind of a new campaign happening to bring attention back to an outstanding issue with AmeriCorps where there's accusations that AmeriCorps spent ARPA funds past the rescission due date that was implemented under the Fiscal Responsibility Act in 2023. Michael Smith, former CEO of AmeriCorps, testified to Congress about that they believe that that's a misunderstanding, that in fact, the expenditures and the awards that they made were obligated funds that would not have been subject to that rescission of funds. They simply were just moving them from one, kind of placeholder kind of status in e-grants to award status. But that is an outgoing issue or an ongoing issue. And there seemed to be a coordinated campaign to denigrate AmeriCorps on that basis last week, all of a sudden. And then this happened. So we don't know if obviously speculation on whether that was some sort of tipped things over or not, tipped the scales. Doesn't matter. It happened. That we did receive notice that these rumors were occurring. It was sort of commission network kind of agreement that we all were, since we did not know if these letters of termination, if they were real, where they would go. Would they go to grantees? Would they go to us? Come to me as the authorized party on the grants, new grants? We didn't want people to be caught off guard or receive that. We decided to get out heads up notices. So I did send those out that afternoon, and also to program partner branches operating in the state, funds, grantees that are not administered by us, but straight through AmeriCorps, but who have lost their portfolio manager at AmeriCorps due to the administrative leave that 500 of the 600 staff at AmeriCorps were placed on the week before. So I've sort of been like their contact hub, their information hub. So I did get that out. An hour later at 3:45 p.m. received an email titled Termination Notice of AmeriCorps Award. That notice said that all of our current funding for formula programs was terminated effective immediately, that all program activities should cease immediately and programs should begin to be closed out. I'll have some further details on what that email stated in a later slide. Immediately engaged agency leadership here at the HAC. My supervisor, Ben Cannon, Department of Justice, Governor's Office, etc., were immediately contacted and notified of this. A lot of stuff was happening behind the scenes, but eventually emails that I was able to send out some emails with approved language. Those didn't go out to about 8:30 at night, based on just kind of how late we received the notice and then what we had to do to kind of be able to get that information out. The reason why this is important is there are directives from the governor for response to any federal actions, and we need to be in alignment with that. And so, unfortunately, yeah, we received the notice late. Programs received the notice late. But we did feel it was important that did need to go out immediately. Email components, essentially, I notified that we received that notice of immediate termination to the 2024 AmeriCorps program grant, notifying that we are assessing the notice and impact. Request not to take any immediate actions to terminate members or close or alter program activities, and until we can receive legal advice and determine if this is lawful order and determine next steps. Just letting people know that that's obviously going to take some time. That we hope that this week that we'll be able to issue some further guidance after there's a legal review. Gave some information around. Obviously, we're going to make direct updates to people, but also that they asked me to notify of some resources on the state websites where they do post legal opinions or other things like that are occurring with federal action updates. And just reminding them of our mission and commitment. This is obviously devastating, and we know it's devastating for them and for the communities and for the members. And that we're going to get some legal guidance to see kind of what to do with this, but that we're still committed to national service in our state and have the support of our state agency. So as far as the impact of this decision in Oregon for our funding, this is our entire portfolio that has been terminated. This is at a total of $4.8 million. This affects 9 program grants, so 9 community organizations, which are a combination of nonprofits and nonprofits and K-12. I don't think we have any local government. And then one placeholder grant was also included in the list. As I mentioned, these are some funds that we were just actually have a current amendment to kind of move around to be able to cover some other costs that amendment can't get approved because is not currently a portfolio manager available at AmeriCorps due to the staff being put on leave. So that is still sort of in a pending status. So it was included as one of the termination targets. My best guess estimate, and we'll be following up to find out more about this, but my best guess is that's around 153 members just from our portfolio that would be impacted that are currently serving. And this is just based on enrollment reports and early exits and things that I was able to pull together in eGrants. Nationwide, this is over $400 million in total funding terminated. This is 1,031 total awards, 32,465 members. So out of everything that was terminated, about 80% is terminated within the pocket of funding that is for AmeriCorps State and National, or as we call it, ASN. So so we already know that NCCC was already mass demobilized before that. So take that out of the equation. Then you have the other branches. You have AmeriCorps State, which is us. You have AmeriCorps National Direct, AmeriCorps Vista, AmeriCorps Seniors. I think I said National Direct, and then Volunteer Generation Fund. This is affecting all of them, but 80% of the cuts happened in that pocket of ASN. And then within that 80%, 97% of it are the state grants, are the grants that the state commissions administer. Largely national directs and senior programs were unaffected. Most, like I said, is the state grants and then Vista. Other programs in Oregon that were impacted and were on the list include the Vista project that is operated by Oregon Health Authority state agency. That's the largest Vista program operating in Oregon, but they only had 7 members currently serving. Excuse me. This is actually sort of like a wind down period for the program year. So they had members already exited and so forth. This includes, I think, 6 that are at local nonprofits or 6 that are at local clinics and 1 at a nonprofit. The other grant on the list is Jesuit Volunteer Corps Northwest. And so I spoke to Greg, who's one of our commission members, and they had different grants. They have their national direct, but they also had their public health AmeriCorps. They had actually rescinded that grant. The new timelines didn't match up for them. So I think they actually have a pending deobligation process already happening. So they had no members on that grant. Their other grant wasn't impacted. So they largely are not going to be impacted at all. It's mostly Oregon Health Authority in addition to us. So the termination notice cites that these programs these grants that were terminated no longer effectuate agency priorities. The termination's effective immediately and no administrative appeal allowed. We're not really seeing any direct pattern in the list of cuts to all the states. It seemed to impact both red and blue states. I mean, one speculation, obviously, there's a little bit of a pattern emerging that it could be, states maybe that didn't feel gave a satisfactory response to the EU compliance requests, or it could be states where they thought they're, internally AmeriCorps has a risk assessment. And so maybe internally, these might be states that were showing, that they were medium or high risk. And that can be anything from, I think OregonServes actually might have been on that list at some point just because we had moved the state agencies, like things like that can trigger that. Low enrollment, if there's, anything, previous findings in a monitoring and so forth. And I'll be pretty clear that we're pretty good monitoring wise. So, we had some technical administrative stuff in our last monitoring with no fiscal findings that were pretty simple and it's closed to satisfaction. So just as a sidebar to that, but it could be any of those things. Nobody really knows. I already mentioned about seniors and national directs. The other thing that the termination letter cited is that they encourage remaining programs to accept transfers of members from terminated programs. If that were to happen, you do have to do another NSCHC, but there are processes in place to allow that to happen. So that would be if, say, even just say like Jesuit volunteers current program or food corps or being just saying like, hey, yeah, we have some open slots. They can't just make slots, but we already have some open slots, and we'll take a member that's from a terminated program or whatnot. I think there's a way for that to be done. So that's essentially what it states. We have a lot more questions than we have answers on that and all of this actually, but and then the other thing that we know is that CSG and KIF, our operating grants, were originally on that list to be terminated, but apparently were taken off last minute. Um, Not sure what that's going to look like in the future. One of the things that we're aware of as far as something happening this week is that the rescission package is due into the administration this week. So um, that is basically the administration's recommendations to the president on, or Doge, I'm not sure, on who they think should actually return spent funds from all the federal agencies. So obviously that is a huge concern. But inside sources, which take that as you will, are saying we don't expect AmeriCorps to be on that. But we've seen other surprises, so we're not sure. Some legal considerations. Some of the items stated in that termination letter do not actually follow law. Items that are in the CFR, items that are in statute for due process. There are various statutes that cite that there is expectation around time of notice to be given and opportunity to respond. They stated we don't get to do that in the termination letter. So obviously that would be looked into as part of the legal review. The general terms and conditions prohibit arbitrary termination. And so to all people's opinions, that would be considered arbitrary. So that it doesn't support agencies' priorities. However, the priorities for AmeriCorps are in statute approved by Congress. Those focus areas have not been updated by anyone in statute. They remain. Additionally, the funds that have been terminated are state program grants, which in statute are for state service commissions to apply to fund interventions that align with our state's emerging needs and priorities and governor's office priorities. And none of that has been changed in statute. Therefore, those awards follow current agency priorities by law. So obviously there's a lot of things that, would be looked at and explored. And what I am aware of right now is that state attorney generals are preparing litigation around this. If that happens, I think it's expected to be filed later this week. Various remedies may be sought. We have seen in other cases where decisions by Doge like this have been reversed or temporarily paused. Injunctions have come out. Temporary restraining orders have come out. Some of the considerations around that would be, what is the best thing to seek? Which states are going to join that? If states don't join that and a TRO was put in place, is that for everybody that was impacted or only states that joined the lawsuit? So there's a lot of things being discussed like that. So just FYI on that. As far as further actions for us, I don't have any answers or any guidance to give grantees right now beyond what I've already given and what I've been allowed to give. We have a lot to look into. There's a lot of technical things, a lot of legal things that we need to figure out to determine the best course of action. And that also needs to be, a decision that is includes and is guided by legal counsel, by state leadership, by the governor's office, et cetera. So I wish I had a lot of answers right now for these things, and I don't. This just happened Friday night, and we've been working tirelessly all weekend to figure out what we can do, and that is just continuing. But what we do know is that our state association, others, or legal counsel are looking into a lot of options, putting together some ideas. And I just got staff updated this morning. So there's just a lot going on there. There's a few different things to look at. Like I said, what would happen as far as which states would join lawsuits, what people should do as far as with members. There's some options there as far as pausing activities, but keeping them on status to retain pay and health insurance and things like that, following a 30-day exit, making sure options remain open. For instance, if a member's exited, then they can't transfer, or if this was to be reverse, they can't re-enroll. So there's a lot, just we have to start running through all of these scenarios and just figure out the best course of action to give. So we're just asking programs to currently follow what was given in the email Friday night. We are also obviously as a network and state looking at, guidance around like what would be considered wind down activities and allowable costs. Um, Obviously, as it says to turn, stop program activities, but close out activities when these still happen. And we would expect that, those would be considered allowable costs. And we need to make sure no one's going to be having to do things without that pay. Um, we are pursuing uh I've reached out to our contact and asked for our Schultz Family Foundation Emergency Assistance Grant. We still have not a ton of money. We have about $14,000 left in that grant, and that funding pot is actually has an age restriction on it. As for a certain like up to a certain age, and so looking into options for having that lifted so that we could at least free up some of that money for emergency assistance. Additionally, promoting ASK's Emergency Assistance Fund that they started last week, originally to focus on the NCCC demobilization and those members that need support. They're now opening that up to all members. And that's just donation based. There's no grant behind that. It is just seeking donations to, do some temporary mitigation of the potential loss of income for members. If people want, they can actually even designate that they want that specifically for Oregon members. Also just determining like which programs are active in Oregon so that we can like let grantees know that, and if they would like to pursue like transfer options and things like that. Probably internally look at if there's any of other programs that like HEC funds or Office of Workforce Investment funds that might be transfer options. Some of the unknowns have said we don't, we're happy to see that we're happy to see that CSG and KIF was not on the chopping block. We're a little nervous about if any of that might change, and obviously what that's going to look like for our next grant. Those applications were actually submitted on the 16th, the same day that the notice of all the AmeriCorps, wait, or maybe that was the date. It was either the day of the NCCC demobilization or the admin leave. I think it was the day of the admin leave, but essentially we're a little concerned about that. We were already concerned because there needs to be staff at AmeriCorps to review and approve those grants, as well as reviewing and approving the competitives that are already submitted, and then the upcoming 25-26 applications that are due into us on May 2nd and into AmeriCorps on June 13th. So we're really not sure what that's going to look like, how the approach is going to be based on what they're doing now. What that means to have current ones funded, what then is the criteria for 25-26? Does that change? Are we out like what are the impacts here? We don't know. Obviously don't know what is going to happen as far as any potential interventions that may occur on the legal front. And then obviously don't know what's going to occur with that rescission package this week. So there's a lot of unknowns. Like I said, we have more questions than I have answers to provide today. I really can just provide these kind of like where we're at up to now. I think this might be my last slide. Communications and outreach. I did just want to confirm. I would assume that people were going to ask around what kind of outreach or communication is happening. Education, outreach, site visits, all of that is still encouraged. People can do that as far as like any grantees want to do that, or members, they can do that on their own time off of grants or whatnot. As far as commission members go, this is public, you can speak on this. And I've put a lot of different resources in the base camp for you for that. There's a lot of campaigns for people to be aware of that are happening with Voices for National Service, Service Year Alliance, Ask, and so forth for outreach to elected officials. A lot of really simple ways to do that, and quite frankly, we're not really trying. There's no concern about Democrats being behind us on this. We know that they support AmeriCorps. They're not in charge of the budget. Republican Congress would need to intervene and save this. And so you're able, just pointing out those resources for the follow-up that anybody would like to do. And I think that is basically it. I'll stop sharing and just kind of turn it over, see if anybody has any questions or anything else.
Thank you, Carrie. And sounds like you had a long weekend. So thank you for.
I'm like shaking from the amount of coffee that
Oh no, yeah.
I drank so far this
Um,
morning, so don't mind me.
yeah. I did have a couple of questions sort of to kick off this Q&A here. One, do we have any idea why specifically commission grantees and ASN programs were seemed to be targeted? And two, do we have any inclination whether or not Oregon AG Dan Rayfield is going to be preparing litigation along with those other states that you listed?
So I think, so your first question was, I'm sorry, say it again.
Do we have any understanding of why ASN programs and commission
Oh.
grantees seem to be targeted?
We don't, I mean, beyond just the speculation that I gave, like I said, there wasn't any like real pattern seen in the spreadsheet of all the terminated programs. There's the theory potentially that again, either risk assessment results, like EO compliance, whatnot. Is it just easier to cancel state grants? I don't know. I mean, and that's hard to go, like, where does that go? Because this administration has stated that state rights are incredibly important to them, and they really believe in that. And so, state rights would presumably mean states choose how to spend their funding. Um, and so, go with that how you would like. But yeah, I don't know. There's no real idea there. We don't know if it's based on like, oh, maybe they didn't have that many, maybe they had like, did they keep programs that maybe had like higher levels of currently enrolled members? I mean, there's just like, I don't think anybody's been able to establish a pattern yet. The thing that I think is worth pointing out though, is that if you recall, and you look at the House's proposed budget for 25-26, state commissions are zeroed out.
Right.
And so this would follow their desire to dismantle state commissions.
And then the second question was, have we heard anything about whether AG Rayfield is preparing litigation?
I can't speak to that.
Okay, great.
Legal review is underway. Any request for information we'll cooperate with, and I think yeah, we'll know more later this week as those things are unrolling.
Yeah. Okay.
But we obviously, yeah, we're seeking legal review.
I have a couple questions.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, hi, good to see you.
Good to see you too. Sorry,
Wish it was under better circumstances to see all of you.
sorry I'm joining late. We were in a School of Ed thing. Um, where is there any role for the governor's office to play here? I mean, are they able to do anything to help stem the tide while this transition of whatever the legal action is can take place, or is it pretty much just zeroed out and waiting?
I mean, that's what we're trying to find out, and I'm pulling a lot of information together. I had already started pulling information together actually a couple of weeks ago of just, this is like our amount of grants and how much is unspent and how many members and still serving and some of that, so that I would be ready to answer that question in case something like this happened. So we're giving them a lot of information to raise awareness of the impact, so that if there is some way that obviously assistance could come in, they'll have that information of what we would need. But I don't have anything to say anybody's going to cover anything, or any other funds would be released or whatnot. I mean, I think all that is like remains to be seen, and certainly would be one of the options we would pursue, but we're not really there yet. But we are acting under the governor's authority and directives to communicate and collaborate with her communications team, the Attorney General's Office, Department of Justice, etc. She had established a directive earlier in the year that we don't act until we receive that guidance for any federal action that comes in. So little old AmeriCorps actually is the first federal agency that really has been a part of all of this, because you'll recall that when the EOs came out, they don't have a political appointee. So there's no one telling them do this and do that. Jennifer was promoted within as the internally as the acting director. So they had moved early on the EO compliance to sort of be like, okay, yeah, we did that like, stop perceiving us, move on or whatnot. We're in compliance, like, we're cool, like kind of move on. Which meant they got out ahead of everyone else and sort of have become now, that sort of set some precedent for some response. And so we have been working with the governor's office from the beginning on guidance on how the governor would like state entities to respond to the current administration's requests. So there is a lot of collaboration there. But getting into the details of any sort of, other mitigation plans, like we aren't there, and we're obviously not going to promise anything right now on this and that, but certainly pursue whatever option we can, because we want as much harm to or we want the least amount of harm is what I'm obviously trying to say, to happen to communities and programs and members.
Yeah. Just one other question. So I'm part of that little grant review group. Are we still going to be doing that? Yeah, for the grants?
Oh, for 25, 26.
Yeah.
I mean, right now, unless we hear anything different, we would assume that that is moving ahead. Until I guess we see appropriations come out for 25, 26, yes. But we would want to be ready, and especially in case, this is not unheard of at all, that the very short due dates and windows of notice and due dates are given. That's very classic, actually. Even before all of this, that was kind of classic AmeriCorps. And so, being ready is really important. And so if we see a small window to grab funds for 25, 26 and get that in, like, we want those applications reviewed and approved and like ready to go. So my, expectation would be that until someone tells us to stop, we're going to keep going, because we are committed and AmeriCorps is resilient, and other entities have seen these things paused and reversed and whatnot. And so that's the future that like we're going to focus on.
That's good. Thanks.
Question sort of related to that last comment.
I'm
If
manifesting
the,
here.
yeah,
I'm
if
manifesting here. Hopefully.
the 25, 26 zeroed out appropriation for commissions becomes reality, what does that mean for you and your team and us
Me and what was the last sentence?
and your team
Oh, and our team.
and us and like, I know that we have, yeah, okay, we don't know.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. Hopefully a lot of successful lawsuits.
Right.
I mean, but in serious, I mean, I don't know. I mean, the fact of the matter is that we are a federally required entity in statute. We are congressionally approved. We have bipartisan support. Don't have all the people in control that maybe connect on some of that, but the fact of the matter is that we are federally required to exist. And, there are legal actions being pursued based on what is perceived and as illegal directives occurring. So certainly not just to us, but across the board in many ways. And we're seeing a lot of federal agencies fight back on these things, go to court with these things. And like I said, see them reversed and whatnot. We don't have backup funds for this right now. Our CSG and our KIF pay for our team staff, pay for our commission activities and whatnot. So there's a lot going on there, and obviously, like, yeah, I don't even want to speak that into existence. I would hope that that would not happen, but I would expect that any continued actions for that would end up in court. So I think that, yeah, I don't know.
And I imagine the answer to this question is the same. Any whispers about them doing a total overhaul of the National Community Service Act, just completely scratching.
No one has touched that
Knock on wood.
on that side of things. What I will say is that there are a lot of federal acts that need reauthorization. And a lot of them are in pending status because it's risky to ask for a reauthorization because you open the door to get less. You're opening the door for the entire thing to be reviewed and potentially harmed or rewritten in a negative way. That act actually does need to be rewritten for national service. I'm on one of the national committees for that, where we are, addressing some recommendations and different things through Ask. I mean, like with a lot of that different stuff happens through Ask and has been ongoing. So there were some recommendations for expansion and addressing some of the the barriers and different things like that. I think that that's a conversation that's going to have to occur around, where you would go with those activities. What is a good climate to introduce that during and whatnot. So yeah, I don't know. But as of right now, I am not aware that the federal administration is doing anything with that act. And I would point out that I'm not sure that they think they have to do anything, because as mentioned, there are quite a few things in that act that are law that termination letter is in conflict with. So I don't think they feel that there has to be a match at all to implement their activities. So why bother, right?
So, Carrie, for now, our members are still in place, right? I mean, they're still serving until we know more about the lawsuits, or what's
We
happening with them?
directed grantees to not alter activities or exit members until further notice. So yes. But obviously, like, we have to dig deeper into what to advise with some of that. But various states would be looking into things like how they might be able to cover costs with match funds or off budget funds. Whether you would keep a member active so that you're paying them and whatnot, but they're not doing the activities. Different things like that.
Okay.
Well, I will say, I think an interesting distinction to make is that NCCC members are still getting paid. There was a mass demobilization of NCCC members a couple of weeks ago. And they're still getting paid through the end of the month. And so they were like put on it at like leave with pay, kind of similar thing, right? So one could then maybe assume then that that's a standard being set, right? That why then can all of us put members on leave but with pay? Because that's the standard that we're seeing through the administration's treatment for AmeriCorps and CCC members, and they administer those grants directly. So there would be precedent is the word apparently I'm trying to find. Again, sorry, I'm really tired. That would, yeah, be a precedent, I think. So for that, so looking into that and what other things would be maybe potentially allowable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean,
And the
weeks of
termination letter
AmeriCorps
does
pay is-
direct, sorry, the termination letter does direct that members are exited under CPC. As we know, that's actually a request usually because a member has to leave service. And that's like a request without judgment and an exit, so that without judgment, so that they could, possibly re-enroll in the future and whatnot. And so the termination letter states that members should be exited under the CPC if they are exited. Law states that you actually have like a 30-day exit process and whatnot. So there's some stuff like that to look into. So we are not
Carrie,
advising any activities until we can figure out and figure out what to do.
what is CPC?
Compelling personal circumstance.
Thank you.
Usually enacted because, I mean, like income wise, like it's not feasible for a member. They got a job. Medical stuff, I'm serving here and I need to move home because of something that, is happening with my family, like that kind of stuff. Can't complete their service, but not anything based on, performance issues or, anything like that.
So to use like military terminology, like versus
Yes.
dishonorable
What's that
discharge
called?
versus
Yeah.
an honorable discharge, right?
Right,
Okay.
exactly. And then the expectation would be that, because this is how, again, NCCC is being members, how their exit has played out, is that education awards would be prorated.
Okay.
So if you are serving a full time of 1,700 hours and you've served 1,400 hours, you would get, I don't know the math here, but let's pretend it's I am right now, but it's like 85% or something. Do you know what I mean? So you would get like
Oh,
85% of like the 7,850 of the Ed Award.
okay.
So based on like your completion of hours.
Mhm. But also
So,
wasn't the bank, so to speak, also
well, that
zeroed
was
out
what
in
I
the
was going to say
appropriation?
next is
Right.
obviously a concern would be in the appropriation table, one might look at that and say like, oh, well, okay, they zeroed out state commissions, but they still put funding, they're still saying like in the column for Vista and National and seniors or whatever, there's still funding. But if you look lower into the National Service Trust, which is like the bank account for Ed Awards that is appropriated to pay the Ed Awards, um, that's zeroed out. And so by law, by statute, you cannot enroll a member in national service unless you have an Ed Award available to give them. So that's
Mm,
like a backdoor way to end AmeriCorps,
wow.
to zero out AmeriCorps. And so obviously if there is, concern around, I guess, is that saying no additional money for the Ed Awards that would be earned in 2025, 26? Or is that like, is that touching the current amount in there? Is that amount current going to be in the rescission package, which would mean that you would take away Ed Awards already earned? So, this is a huge concern, obviously, as well.
I'm not positive if this question makes sense, so if it doesn't, please tell me. As things stand today, right now, how much leeway, how many resources do we have to keep paying current members? Like, at what point would things run out?
I'm going to back up a little bit and explain the process. So, when we have approval and then apply, we've got here, apply for the AmeriCorps state funds. We approve that internally. You receive the commission board's approval, and then that's submitted to AmeriCorps, who just basically signs off, right, at that point, because these are state, not competitive. Then we receive a notice of a grant award. And so, we would get a notice of a grant award that says like HEC has been awarded, the requested amount of $4 million in AmeriCorps funds for 250 member slots or whatever that might look like, at the amounts of this much for each one of those programs that applied. College Possible, Metropolitan Family Service, Ethos, etc. So then that is allocated, like awarded to us. We then issue grant agreements, execute grant agreements for that to our grantees. And so that money is basically then drawn down by us. So what they do is on a minimum monthly basis, they submit a periodic expense report, because this is reimbursement based, not whatever it's called. So it's reimbursement based. And so we receive that, we process, we approve, do all the, fiscal management. And then we, in the payment management system that everybody, like federal system, whatever, the PMS, then we then draw down those funds, the HEC fiscal department does, and then we issue those. And so I know that was like a little in the weeds, but it's just to explain when you start hearing around like allocated funds, obligated, de-obligated, unobligated, all these different things. We have been awarded those funds already. We have an agreement with AmeriCorps for these funds for a purpose. We then have agreements with our grantees for these funds for this purpose. They are supposedly in our bank. The action that's being reviewed right now and looked into, some commissions already this morning were finding they were not able to access PMS. So we're looking into that to make sure that has not now been cut off. It should be, we're processing our PERS immediately that we already had and getting those funds issued out immediately to those grantees. We are also asking for them to immediately submit any additional costs that have happened, because when you submit it, if you submit a PER on May 1st, it's for April's activities. And so then, like what we're just trying to get all that caught up and make sure we get that all issued as much as possible. The expectation was that we obviously, even if 25, 26 funds hadn't come in, that we were able to spend down our entire grants that we legally have a right to and we've been awarded to. This letter tells us we no longer may spend those funds on things that are approved within those grant agreements. So we're looking into whether or not the PMS system is obviously like, and the thing I will say, and not to cause panic, but like the PMS system and the e-grants always have issues. There's always delays. Someone's always like having a hard time, like internet down or whatever is happening in that state. So like, it's always a thing. I mean, if a lot of people are accessing it once, which tends to happen after things like this happened during, just a couple of weeks ago when all the staff were laid off, it just clogs it up. So we don't know if that's just normal, like situation going on. The other issue would be is that some people have seen that there's some activity happening where potentially DOJ is going into e-grants and actually amending current notice of grant awards to reflect current activities. This would not be I don't know if that's true or if there's speculation. I'll probably have a lot of messages to catch up on after I get out of this call. Things happen that fast, but I will say that we did not receive notice that DOJ and AmeriCorps had gone in and actually changed the assurances and certifications that commissions agree to when they submit grant applications until probably a week or two after they changed them. It was only it was only by chance that any of us saw that grant certifications and assurances and certifications that we agreed to like last year when we applied for these grants had actually been updated with current executive order language. So what it would appear that I agreed to that when I submitted that application last year, which I hadn't. But they did note that like the edit date, but nobody was notified of that. It didn't come out for a couple of weeks. It just was noticed by accident. And like highlighted. So they are retroactively, going in and updating things in grants. And so we're obviously looking to see if that's going to happen and if we will get new notice of grant awards, which may then be now aligned with their current activities. And so, obviously like legality of all of that is to be decided. That my opinion, I have no, well, I mean, I do have an opinion, but I mean, there's nothing I can say insofar as like the true legality and things like that. Like I'll leave that all up to legal people, but those
Right.
are things that would obviously are causing us alarm, and we're keeping
Yeah.
an eye out for. I'm sorry, what is the time?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, looking at the
Shoot,
time, we have
sorry.
about 9
I don't
minutes.
know. You tell me if I'm giving you too much, not enough. Like my head is filled with stuff. So
You're doing incredible, Carrie, and I truly hope that you have a moment to take care of yourself and do
I
what you
probably
gotta
just
do.
need to eat and stop drinking
Just
coffee
stop
for a
drinking
bit.
coffee. Yeah, switch to decaf, my friend. Does anybody have
Yeah.
any other questions, comments for Carrie for the good of the order?
And I have some requests, but I'll wait for that.
Okay. Sounds like there's no questions immediately right now, Carrie. So, what are your requests?
Hey,
What do you
dude, can
need?
I ask? We have guests here, and I just don't know who you are, and I'm just curious
Oh,
who you
I'm
are.
so sorry. Yes,
Yourself.
yes. Welcome. Would you like me to have them introduce themselves, Carrie? I apologize. Yes, feel free to take yourself off mute.
Hi, I'm Michelle Beeman. I'm a retired pediatric ER physician and live in Hood River. And gosh, that was a great synopsis of some upcoming issues, I guess. I jumped in today only because I have tried to navigate how to volunteer as a physician on Serve Oregon and never quite figured out all the paperwork and
Oh, okay, yeah, through OHA.
issues
Yeah,
needed. And so I just jumped on today for my first public meeting to kind of
sure.
figure out.
Well, you picked a very active, lively time to
Yes.
join
I
us.
sure did.
I'll make a
Yes.
quick distinction for you. Serve Oregon is the medical volunteer group of Oregon Health Authority. So not directly like under us, but I certainly
Okay.
can follow up, like, follow up if you wanted to reach out to me on, like kind of how to become involved with that, because it's actually, they're partners with like our emergency response stuff. And so there's actually a connection there that I could share with you and stuff. But
Okay. Yeah, if you
and
could.
that's not AmeriCorps funded, so you should still be good on that. So
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's how I kind of jumped in. Serve Oregon.
Well, welcome.
OregonServes, and interested in everything that you had to say today. If you could maybe put your email down in the messages, that would be great. I'll reach out and see how I reconnect with
And apologies for not recognizing that we had some guests here. There's been
Oh,
some
no
changes
worries. I
in
just started.
membership, so I wasn't sure. Is this Melissa M? Is this also a guest? Not hearing anything.
Oh, yeah. Oh, thanks for
America,
your service.
wonderful. Yeah, thank you for your service, Melissa, and thank you for being here. So Carrie, wrapping up here in the next
Yeah.
couple of minutes, your requests, recommendations, what do you need from us?
I am working on just some, kind of a work plan, mitigation plan on some of this, pulling together a lot of resources. We'll continue to post what I can in Basecamp. I followed up on previous full commission meeting requests for like some outreach resources and stuff. I think I put in that recent post about all of that. I do want to encourage consideration for the commission to maybe draft a statement for programs and members, and also obviously mention that anything like op-eds and anything like that are things that people can do. And there's a lot of resources for that, and I'm happy to share any information. There's no reason why you shouldn't be able to do that if you would like.
Is drafting a statement for members something that we need to vote on? Are you proposing it here so that we can bring it to the full commission meeting?
Which is the 9th, right?
Yeah, I
God, is
believe
that
so.
next Friday?
Oh, goodness gracious. Is it? 1 second here. Yes, it is next Friday at 11.
Yeah, I actually started a potential draft for you all to
Okay.
work with. Can share that. Yeah, and I guess you could vote on that on the 9th.
Vote on
That
the
we do?
draft of it or on the creation of it?
I don't know.
Okay.
Um,
I think it would be great if you brought a draft or provided us one, and then we could basically move it forward faster.
yeah.
Even if it, like, you just send it to like me, Daniel, and Heidi to review so that we can have a full draft
And then
as
for the
to
full
like
commission to then
executive committee
review it.
to,
And yeah, because I'm trying to think. So I can't really like post it in Basecamp or something and have everybody weigh in, because we create a serial communication issue, which is
right.
public meeting violation. So if I just like not meeting a quorum, but like sent it out to YouTube, because Heidi is out of the country.
Oh, okay. So
But
yeah.
she did say hello, and she's with us in spirit and really upset about what's going on and their support. She's actually not going to be at the next commission meeting either, so Daniel is chairing that as well. But Daniel, like, I can send something to you too. We wouldn't be establishing quorum. There's something you could work on, then you'd be able to formally during a public meeting then bring it up with the rest of the commission to like wordsmith and decide on and like do what you want to do.
How does that sound to you, Daniel? Okay. Great. Thank you,
I've
Carrie.
never seen you in a baseball hat before. You look so different to me.
Mhm.
It's a new one. I got it at the state capitol.
Oh,
Amazing.
great. Okay.
But yeah, sounds good. Good plan.
Anything else?
No, I think just voices really matter right now, raising
Mhm.
attention to the value of AmeriCorps and how important it is to the state of Oregon. I mean, service and volunteerism, civic engagement is like part of our social fabric, right? And
Mhm.
it's like, I mean, we were what, number 10 in
Mhm.
states for volunteering. This is a really important value of the state. I think this isn't how public servants should be treated. This isn't, AmeriCorps members are serving on moderate income and should be thanked.
Mhm. Yeah. So please, if you don't already have your Basecamp notifications turned on, I would recommend doing that. Even if you don't have it turned on, so you get a notification every single time something comes in, you can get a summary at the end of every day of everything that's happened. There's a lot of resources in there, some outreach and education stuff. Please take a look.
And if you find it annoying, what I do is I have a folder for Basecamp, and I have a rule
yep.
set up in my email that all the notifications go there. Then I get to like look at them when I want, as opposed to like, they're all coming.
Yeah.
It's a little bit easier.
I did that too at your recommendation.
Yeah.
And most importantly, we're all really passionate about this. So don't stay silent, but also remember to take care of yourselves, grieve, do what you got to do, take a break, rest, deep breath, and keep doing the work.
Yeah. And I think, as things unroll, we'll kind of have a clearer picture of what our role will be, what actions we would take, what we need to do insofar as like what Susan, you had mentioned to be around like fundraising and just like different things like that. I think, I'll probably have a lot more information to share on the 9th.
Mhm.
There may also be some calls that I would share with you all that are being extended by ask. I would also say if we have a membership to States for Service. So if you have your personal one or through the commission, a lot of information and calls and things are coming out through there. And sometimes those are ways to find out information that I, as my role as a public employee, cannot share or ask. And so it's helpful to stay active there.
Great. Okay. If there's nothing else, I am closing the meeting at exactly noon, April 28th. Thank you all for being here, and we'll see you at the next